We're back with season three of Cute the Help, and I'm excited and happy to share with you what's in store this season. We'll get into much of what it takes to take care of things that are on the inside, that often show up on the outside, addressing issues of inner healing, emotional healing, as well as what it takes to maintain it, which starts with a couple of things. First, being vulnerable, right? Being vulnerable with yourself and perhaps other people that you trust to be vulnerable with. Maintaining a level of humility is the second thing. Extremely important as you are willing to engage in the process that you humble yourself. Um, and what does that look like? What does that mean? It simply means knowing that you don't know everything, knowing what you do know, but knowing that you don't know everything, and knowing that, again, we are not islands. We are people. We are human beings that are created to be in right community. It is where we grow, it's where we develop, it's where we thrive. So that's what we'll get into this season. And why does this matter? For so many different reasons. For so many different reasons. But I think all of that starts with starting this episode off with a clear understanding as to what inner healing is, from the perspective that I'm going to share from. I know there are many definitions out there, um, and perhaps many explanations, but you know that inner means inside. It simply means inside. And for some people, that may seem self explanatory just by use of the word, but we're going to look a little deeper. Inner healing really gets to the root of where a lot of issues in life, right? That reason why we're told to guard our heart, but where a lot of the issues in life reside, in the spirit, in the soul, in the mind, the will, the emotions. Those areas are the seat of so many things good, and so many things that are not so good that need healing, and sometimes are the things of where the root of physical ailments lie, where we experience things physically in our body, as well as physical successes, so to speak, physical things that are good. So let's think about this. This is an aha I had a couple of weeks ago, where both mental illness and cancer were revealed as to having roots that are physical, spiritual, and again, those inner workings, soulish in man, in nature. This may not be a newsflash to you, but just a reminder for some. What does that mean? Let's start with breaking down and looking at mental illness, right? Because mental health is something that at one point in time was sort of stigmatized to talk about or to deal with, but there is advocacy for mental health and wellness now. There is more of a public eye on mental health and well-being now. I mean, it's something that people are embracing in a different way than I would think, and what I've noticed that perhaps in the past it hadn't been embraced and even discussing, right? And even discussing. But think about this: mental illness can stem from hereditary factors, from biological factors, right? Sometimes it's some things that run in families. Sometimes it's things that can be circumstantial or environmental. If there's something going on in an environment, that can sometimes introduce a level of mental illness or infirmity. And then there's sometimes, maybe there's an accident, or perhaps there's some type of chemical release or something like that. Those things can honestly lead to a level of infirmity that attacks the mind. Now, here's what's also interesting to know for those who are believers. There's a thing called diviner's madness that can be introduced to a person if people have dabbled or if they have played around with certain things that God does not approve of. It can honestly lead to a level of madness or mental infirmity. Check out Isaiah 54. I'm not going to go into too much there, but I want you on your own, check it out. And that's in the Bible. Isaiah 54. God is not pleased with, when I say dabbling, divination, right? Messing around with things those types of things can lead to madness. Divination, things like messing around with tarot cards, or witchcraft, or practicing sorcery, or getting into hexing and vexing people, and casting spells and all that stuff we see in movies that, comes off as pretend, but sometimes it's not pretend. Sometimes it's not pretend. So that kind of stuff. If there's any dark arts or dark magic, that's all rooted in divination. And messing around with that, if you don't stop, to be honest with you, I'm be frank with you all, if you don't stop or if you don't, lay off of it, it can lead to madness. Um, and madness is simply defined as a state again of being mentally ill. It can mess with your mind. It can mess with your thoughts, and we need all of our mental capacity that we can get. I don't know about you, but I want all of my mental capacity. So we thank God that there's healing for that. But understand that a lot of inner healing, again, the season kicking off that inner healing in a different kind of way, um, is rooted in things that we can address, and things that are in our spirits, things that are in our soul. And so we can have healthy beings. Our body, soul, and spirit can all be healthy and be healed and be well. Now, let's take a look at this. I also mention another thing that is, I wish it wasn't as prevalent as it is, but it is in certain areas. Cancer. That evil that we call cancer is something that often stems from something internally. And again, there are biological factors, right? And there are hereditary factors that may make somebody more prone to having cancer or, um, having cells that should not be there in your body. But there's sometimes where there are things that are rooted in the spirit and in the soul, again, the mind, the will, emotions, that can lead to that if we were to pay a little bit more attention to and, do your good work on yourself, right? And becoming the best you and being the best you that God put here on earth. If you are willing to engage in the process of doing that work, can prevent the cancer. It can heal. It can be a part of healing the cancer. I am not against modern medicine, but I am a proponent and an advocate for the fullness of healing and well-being that God allows us to have. And that sometimes looks like changing your diet. That sometimes looks like going to a therapist. That sometimes looks like embracing a healthy lifestyle and how you move around and how you're physical, and having the right community that's healthy for you, and believing in prayer and fasting and worship and God's supernatural, miraculous power. That sometimes looks like getting the chemo, right? That sometimes looks like trying to study. I know people, and my own self, I can testify all of the fullness of what God has for us in healing work. All of those things work. Again, doing our part to be either preventative of these things, and or where we have to be prescriptive. Some of that is rooted in these things that I'm going to share with you, that I believe will set you free in some other areas as well. I realized that unforgiveness and unconfessed sin can surprisingly lead to infirmity in the body. It was revealed, and then it was confirmed in conversation. Not letting things go when we should and when we could, and not saying I'm sorry, God, or I'm sorry to another human being when if something was wrong, can turn into something bigger if we allow it to. You don't want unnecessary. I think the best part, you doesn't want any unnecessary illness or sickness in your body. And so consider this. Confess your sins. What does that mean? Like, say, hey, I messed up. I kind of effed up and did something I shouldn't do to somebody you trust, or just to you and God. And God, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And then from there, allow the leading of the Spirit to lead you and to do what is next, perhaps with another human, right? So, okay, maybe you go apologize and talk to that person, or maybe you leave that person alone and all the rest of. But confessing your sins and saying you're sorry and forgiving, right? To bring some balance to a lot of the conversation around forgiveness, there's also a level of I'm sorry, I apologize that needs to be brought into the conversation and keep some stuff balanced. There is a book called Why don't you just apologize? I love the title by itself. It speaks volumes. Oftentimes, just saying those words, "I'm sorry," right? That can lead to a level of healing for you and somebody else. Take the next step for somebody else. Um, and even if you are still angry about something, let's say somebody did something for you to you, um, and there's still a level of unforgiveness. Even if you have to confess it, back to reconciliation rules, if you have to confess it as a faith confession until it is real and until the sting is gone, do that. And a reminder that forgiving somebody does not mean, okay, here, we're stepping back into this relationship in a different way. You have to be the judge of that. And let God help you with that. Let God help you with that. Let trust be with you. And if you know that you know that go with what you know. But to forgive somebody is letting go of the toxin of the situation, is letting go of the poison of the situation. And if, again, that unforgiveness, that emotional stuff can honestly turn into something physical if we don't nip it in the bud. Does it always happen? No, but can it? Yes. And has it? Yes. But thank God, again, there's healing for that. So just, again, confess your sins and forgive as a faith confession as much as possible. As often as you need to until the sting is gone. And then if you are on the side of needing to receive the forgiveness, consider that self-examination. Or, hey, what am I doing that is leading to this, whatever it is, within yourself or somebody else? And examine yourself and say, hey, what do I need to change? What do I need to stop? If it's wrong, right? If it's wrong, what do you need to change or what do you need to stop? So that's something to consider. Now, here's another thing that I found out that can lead to something. I was shocked, but it's real. And I would be remiss if I didn't share it with you. If we get caught up in negative chatter and putting your mouth on people in a negative way too much, sometimes that can lead to sickness. I've seen it. I wish I didn't, but I have seen that. People have opinions. You have a nose, you have an opinion about things and about people, and you have conclusions that you draw. But we do have to be very careful in our conversation, even with yourself, even with your own self. Like, be careful. Like, don't speak negative stuff over yourself. If something you don't maybe like about yourself, that's one thing. Diagnosing something is one thing, or if you think that about yourself is one thing. But then, okay, what's the solution? Try to think of what's the solution from that. What's the solution to that, rather? Consider that. You don't want to talk negatively about yourself, and you don't want to talk bad about other people in a way that would hurt harm. And so, just be mindful of the words. And if you need help with that, ask God to word your mouth. Ask Him to set a guard over the door of your lip, and ask somebody maybe that you know, love, and trust to help you with that. Hold yourself accountable for that. But just be mindful. Just be mindful. And everyday improvement helps and works. And then finally, again, I remember, there are physical and biological and environmental factors that play into why people develop cancer and get sick with cancer. And I thank God again that there are cures. I thank God that there's help and support for that. But again, that the other little things will help. They can help. They can help with all those things and reducing those cancerous cells and making sure that again, we're in optimal health. So that is the direction we are going this season. Talking a little about inner healing and how that affects things on the outside. And ultimately, of course, my hope and prayer is that you get all the healing that you need, all the help that you need. I know God is a healer, and I know that He also requires us to do our part, just like anything else, and our participation in healing and in our well-being and in other people's well-being as well. Remember, your oxygen mask. Those who are frequent flyers, you know what that's about. You need to put your oxygen mask on first in the event that the air pressure drops, and then you help the person next to you. So, us taking care of ourselves is us taking care of each other, which takes care of our communities. So, something to think about, something to marinate on. You know, what unconfessed sin can you release? Where do you need to forgive somebody? Where do you need to say I'm sorry? Or maybe I quit, right? Where do you perhaps need to change the negative talk and um, exchange it for positive talk, right? Which is not being unrealistic, but for positive talk. And then where does your head and heart need to check? Think about that. So I'm gonna let you sit with that. If you know someone who could benefit from hearing and putting any of this to use, don't hesitate to share it with them. Sharing is caring. And if something has worked for you, don't hesitate to share that. This is on YouTube and also on Spotify. Until next time, see you then.